Well, good morning, fun seekers. This is George McClellan. Welcome to George's Hour on FYN TV. And we'll kind of pick up where Brian left off, but I have my own opinions and my own views on things. And while we are pretty much on the same track, it's the differences that we have in just the subtlety of things happening. Also, I have a different source of information than does Brian. He uses a lot of the networks. I use a couple, but more importantly, I'm still getting a lot of my data from sources that are not common to internet users. And right now we have several problems facing us in the news, and I'd like to address those. I heard Brian coming in talking about George H.W. Bush and his one world government, or his new world order, wanting to focus America's attention on moving on to a global government. We now read in the paper today, that George H.W. Bush is not going to vote for the Republican candidate. He's going to vote for Hillary. Also today, Mitt Romney said he's going to support Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate. What does that tell us about the elites that we have been railing against for years? I have in my short takes railed against the corruption of high Republican politics. Here it is. In full face value, you can see it. They're not supporting the Republican candidate because he is not one of them. He does not roll over. He does not subscribe to the GOP agenda to go along, to get along. He being Donald Trump. They are anti-Trump, and they will move heaven and earth to see that Donald Trump is defeated. The problem we have, of course, is we read in the news where Donald Trump's poll records numbers are pushing far ahead of Hillary Clinton's. We see Hillary Clinton almost comatose when they prop her up in front of a microphone. She has some serious health problems. They are just hoping that they can make it through November 8. Right now, as it stands, if it remains as it is right now, Hillary Clinton will be president, not because of the popular vote. Trump is walking away with that, but the electoral vote. The electoral vote. And that's important to realize, 270 votes. She almost has them if she hasn't got them already. But the next 2 months, we'll see a deciding factor in that. So just keep that in your bonnet. That is for you. If you want to email me on any of the comments I make and make suggestions, you can email me at george@fetchernews.com. Simple as that. If you want to call, we have to keep it short because right now they're just lining up to call me on the phone, and so we keep a short phone call, but it's 706-889-9700, 9700. That should be easy enough to understand. And we'll talk to you on some subject. It has to be decent. We don't use ugly words. We know who the enemy is. It's enough for us to know that it's our job to defeat them. And so there we are. Now, the big news is the bombings and the bombing attempts in New Jersey and New York, the stabbings in Minnesota, and one or two other depredations that has made itself into the news almost. And I say almost because the media is doing everything they can to dampen down the fact that we are under Islamic assault. Islamic assault. And you can attach extreme, you can attach jihadist to it. Jihadist is a word that describes what they are doing. It is a war. It is a war against the West. And but now they're coming out with these concepts to put in our minds of lone wolf attacks. Well, we just have these lone wolf attacks. And I don't believe it's a lone wolf attack. I think these attacks, the San Bernardino attack, I mean, that house was filled with guns and arms that man and woman lived in, was filled with arms and ammunition and bomb-making material. They didn't collect that on their own. Two strangers in this country from an Arab land, Islamic strangers. They did. That was a coordinated effort. There's a serious disconnect between what we talk about when we address and discuss radical Islamic terrorism and the facts evident in the recent reports, including the ones in New Jersey. Be it the idea that recent attacks in Europe are disconnected from global radical Islamic terrorism and are instead the acts of lone wolves. That is the message that everyone is trying to tell us, except Trump and people like me and people who know what's going on. If a man comes running down an aisle, whether it's in a restaurant or a mall, screaming Allahu Akbar, God is great, stabbing people, that is a clue that it's an Islamic attack. You can add radical to it. I don't care what adjectives you assign to an attack, but when people are lying bleeding on the sidewalk or in the aisle, then we have something more than a simple crime. And we have to, I would recommend that we need to create a different system of dealing with this. We did. It's called Guantanamo. It's called Guantanamo. These people that we arrested in this country for Islamic attacks, those that we don't shoot dead on the spot, should be guests at Guantanamo, not in a local jail or a local federal prison or a state prison. They need to be in Guantanamo because they are the enemy. Our politicians, Obama being one of them, said, don't worry. After the Orlando attack on the gay nightclub, he says, don't worry. It's just another lone actor. Jay Johnson echoed Obama, saying that the killer in that incident, Omar Mateen, was self-radicalized. Well, what does that mean, self-radicalized? Without any religious ideology or operational support from friends or his family or other Muslims in the community. And that's a lie. There's one person, his girlfriend or wife, she fled as instantly that incident occurred. Jay Johnson also said that what we do know at this point is it appears that this was a case of self-radicalization. So they're trying to tell us that these people sat at their little computers and absorbed all this Islamic crap after living in a Western democracy for so many years, and then they go out and start killing people. I think there's more to it than that. We saw the term lone wolf used in the Nice, France attack when that Islamist drove a truck and just mowed people down with a delivery truck last July. It emerged, however, that there were 7 accomplices of Tunisian-born French origin who helped that jihadist kill all those people. He drove a 20-ton truck into a Bastille Day crowd. Children, old people, young people, there's a bunch of people killed in that. The lone wolf, such accomplices contradict, of course, the lone wolf concept that fails to acknowledge a link between penetrations and terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda or ISIS as they're called now, or the Islamic State. Those who do follow the mythology of radical Islam know all too well there is rarely the case of a sole individual act. The mere fact is that radicalization comes from study, proselytizing, and indoctrinational influence through multiple methods, not just a TV screen or a computer screen. And it fully supports the rationale that individuals are either linked to handlers directly or through radical Islamic terrorist social media groups. The same story of the lone wolf terrorist has been played out and used to describe the incidents in Orlando, San Bernardino, Ottawa, Bavaria, Belgium, and now in Minneapolis and New Jersey and Queens, New York. Such an effort and use of the term lone wolf is a method, a trick used by the left, the media, and the current administration, Obama's administration, to take our eye off the ball. We are at war, whether we admit it or not. Islam is at war with us. and to make us and to disconnect us from connecting the dots that bring these things all together. There are no lone wolf attacks. All of them are coordinated. And this stabbing in Minnesota, proper investigation, he will have come from a mosque, that fellow, and he will have been involved with other people. And when you have two or more people involved in an attack, that's a conspiracy. And I never hear that word used in the press, on the media at all, a conspiracy. The intelligence community, and those of us, and I worked in the intelligence community many years ago. When I was in Europe, we had terrorism there, but it was the Baader-Meinhof gang and the Red October and groups like that. Now we have Islamic groups. Some of those were Islamic. We didn't recognize the connection that intently in those days, but we do now. In fact, it started when that Achilles Laurel tour ship was hijacked by Islamic jihadists, and they threw people overboard, including that Jewish gentleman who was riding in a wheelchair. They threw him and his chair overboard. So that it starts long before then. The intelligence community, we follow the concept and protocols of Al-Qaeda, its affiliates, and ISIS, and understand completely the MO, the modus operandi, of the recruitment and the indoctrination of Islamic jihadist volunteers. They happen in the madrasas, that's the Islamic schools. They are taken by clerks, radicalized clerks, and in certain mosques. Not all mosques are involved in radicalization. Those are fronts. Oh, look at, we're just here to pray. Well, they have training camps. We've got one or two, I'm told, here in Georgia. And now radical Islamic organizations inspire social media networks, and they are designed to seek out and attract recruits and supporters, and they're doing it. Professionals in the intelligence community, counterterror experts within the national security community, and law enforcement, particularly the NYPD. I love the NYPD, and I'll tell you why. They learned a long time ago their city is so big, and everybody from Europe, almost everybody who comes from Europe, comes through New York City, and they stay there. A lot of them stay there. NYPD got tired of waiting for help from the CIA, so they formed their own intelligence unit. They now have a CIA connection. There's an agent or two assigned to that squad, but he's not there to control them. NYPD has sent their own people abroad, inserted them in cities, and they do not have diplomatic cover. They do not work out of the U.S. Embassy. They work out of their own offices. They're very, very, very secret, but they give a heads up right away to dangers coming to that city. Wonderful organization, and they're very professional people, and I've met a couple of them when I was with the Naval Investigative Service years ago. Intelligence professionals, counterintelligence experts, social scientists, and legal experts value case facts in research on radical Islamic terrorism. So each case involves special techniques, and they try to marry all these techniques together to create a pattern. Patterns is what we follow. With a data-driven view of the often painful facts associated with an attack, we can better analyze and advance our efforts to prevent terrorism. In that spirit and intent, let me offer some thoughts and recommendations for our senior leaders. Now, I'm reading a piece published today by a fellow who writes for the OutLoudAmerica.com. Out Loud America. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, and a very, very smart fellow. First, lone wolf terrorist attack should be replaced with what is really at stake. Let's call it low-tech terrorism. That's how he calls it. When we have a quote lone wolf attack like occurred in New Jersey at the Marine Corps run, at the train station, in the garbage can, and the bomb that went off in the building, that might actually be a wolf pack attack, like the Germans used with their submarines years ago, back in World War II. So we want to keep that in mind. Lone wolf attacks, when they start scattering like that in a certain area, it's got to be more than one person. Lone wolf should be replaced with low-tech terrorism. And low-tech terrorism, I mentioned it yesterday with Brian, a perfect target, a perfect, horrible target are these massive big airport security lines where everybody is lined up waiting to go through machines to see whether they have more than 2 ounces of water in their bag or a self-protection device in their kit. You don't have to go through the machines. You just have to be in that crowd to set off an explosion and kill a lot of people. Remember, terrorism is not an enemy. Terrorism is a method of operation. It's something that is used. Terrorism is politics. That's exactly what it is. The Minnesota slashing attack, and I mentioned the Nice attack with the truck, were part of a multinational, radical Islamic criminal infrastructure. Burrell, the fellow who drove the truck, the 20-ton truck, was a resident of France and a Tunisian who used weapons from Albanian contacts, communicated plans to contacts in Syria, and sent images of his conduct and money to Tunisia and scattered attack sites per instructions from Mideast operatives. He was not a lone wolf. That was a planned, coordinated attack. In many cases, at first glance, some terrorist acts may appear isolated, random, spontaneous, but that does not mean that they are. So it's time now to consider paying for this, you listening to me here, giving me the opportunity to tell you about what's happening out there. And it's time for a break, so get us out of here for a few minutes.
Right now at Pizza Hut, you can get any 2 medium pizzas for $6.99 each. Get any toppings, any crust flavor, anything you want for just $6.99 each. And sweeten the deal with a Hershey's Triple Chocolate Brownie for just $5.99. Only at Pizza Hut.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilmer County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
The summer sell-down is on at Days Chevrolet in Jasper with huge savings up to 16% off MSRP. Save over $4,100 off Malibu Limited, now just $19,500. Save $9,500 on loaded Silverado Crew Cab LT, now only $38,700. Save up to 16% off MSRP on select new Chevys in stock during the summer sell-down. Going on now at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
Hello, America. The first ever $5 flavor menu is here, and it's a game changer. For just $5 each, you can get a medium one-topping pizza, Wing Street Wings, a Hershey's cookie, and your other Hut favorites. A Pizza Hut pizza for just $5? It's the ultimate crowd pleaser. How are you feeling, crowd?
Very pleased, thank you.
We do what we can here.
$5 for a Pizza Hut pizza. How can we not be pleased?
Good crowd today. The $5 flavor menu, America's best pizza deal, only at Pizza Hut.
Welcome back to George's Hour on FYN TV. This is George McClellan, and this is our first show, my first show, for a full hour on this program. It'll be 10 to 11 most every day. I do travel a lot, so there will be fill-ins, I'll tell you, in the future, but it'll still be George's Hour, and we'll let it go at that for this moment. Now, we have some other things in the news that need to be discussed. Part of the Obama administration is this Nimrod named Josh Earnest. I really wonder if that man sleeps at night. I think that the lies he tells, the spins that he utters out to those newspaper people are so corrupt. He's got to realize they're corrupt, or otherwise he is a totally idiot, a total idiot. But he was talking yesterday. Reporter asked the White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest, well, it was Martha McCallum of Fox News actually, about his statements earlier on MSNBC's Morning Joe, that the fight against Islamic terrorism is a war of narratives. That was his statement, a war of narratives. If you watch TV, you saw the photograph of the cameras, 3 of them, 2 of them facing opposite directions on the street and 1 of them inside, and 3 girls walked by, and as soon as they passed by, boom, the bomb goes off, things are floating around in the air. These girls, you can see them running back in the opposite direction to where they came from. They were wounded. Those girls had shrapnel, glass bits and pieces in their bodies. So tell that people that this is a war of narratives. Narratives means you've got something to sell that's better than the other guy. The left is spouting Marxism. That is their dogma. That is everything they say is wrapped around one of the Karl Marx, Saul Alinsky related pieces of dogma, and it cannot be believed. It's failed forever. So those girls were injured. The pictures last night, they were interviewing a couple of them, and they had glass in their bodies. They hadn't even been taken out yet. So, they're anyway. Martha said, "You mentioned earlier today you believe it's a narrative battle we're fighting. I think that for the people who have shrapnel in their shoulders this morning, they might have a hard time accepting that. That is a narrative battle we're fighting against ISIS. Explain what you mean by that." And Josh Earnest, I meant very specifically, Martha, we're taking fight to them on the ground in Iraq and Syria. We're taking the fight to Iran and Syria. The president has organized an international coalition. He can't organize his way to go to the bathroom, for my God. 5,000 airstrikes in Iraq. Well, they're not American airstrikes because we can't afford it. Most of them are Russian airstrikes and maybe a few NATO. 5,000 airstrikes in Iraq and Syria the last couple of years. Well, a couple of years he might cover. What is important in the context of political debate is to remember ISIL. And he uses L. He uses the L in there instead of ISIS. The L is very important. He's suggesting the L stands for Levant. And Levant includes the country of Jordan and the country of Israel. Those are not in Islamic hands, the jihadist hands. They are out of the Levant. They're part of the Levant. So ISIL has no control over those two countries yet, or ISIS has no control. These little word games that Obama likes to play, and Josh Earnest. ISIL is trying to assert a narrative that they represent the religion of Islam in a war against the West and in a war against the United States. So there, from Josh Earnest's own mouth, he has said that Islam is supporting the war against the West, yet when it's brought up in other news attacks, we're not at war with Islam. Well, yeah, we are. We're definitely at war with Islam. And I don't see what's so hard to understand. This is mythology. That is falsehood. That is not true. That is bankrupt ideology they are trying to wrap in the cloak of Islam, and to suggest that somehow we should treat Muslims differently or suspect them as terrorists just because of religion. And Martha interrupted that and said, well, nobody's talking about that. So here we go. These people play words. They use words. One day I shall come out with a list of politically correct terms and what they really mean, and that should be some interesting reading. You can keep it at your side and know what they're talking about, understand what they're talking about. Have any of the Washington elites, and I say Washington elites, and I'm talking about Senate and the Congress, the representatives, the people who run that. Those are the Washington elites right now. Have any of these people ever read a history book? And that's a good question. I'd like to know that. Have they forgotten that the Crusades were fought to stop the world domination of the Islamic religion? Obama likes to tell us that Islam is angry because of the Crusades. Well, Islam had been attacking everybody for 700 years before the first crusade was ever launched. So keep that in mind. They swept all of Spain. They held Spain for 400 years. They attacked into France and got stopped at France. They went up through the Balkans, and they got stopped at the gates of Vienna, following the Danube River. And that was the end of the progress of Islam by the sword. Now they're doing it by stealth technology. They're doing it by mass invasion of these people out of Syria. And they might win if people like Merkel continue and Obama continue to tell us that that's a religion of peace. It ain't. Forget it. It ain't. Stop lying to the American people. This is a guy who answered a blog. So we're in a situation that is highly combustible. Americans here in this country are becoming alarmed at what we see and what is happening in our midst, and they keep telling us, or try to tell us, Islam is a religion of peace. And they talk about moderate Islam, Muslims. There are no moderate Muslims. There's one book, and that's the Quran. And then there's Sharia law that accompanies the Quran, and they all accept that. They accept that. They have to accept that. If they do not accept it, then they are apostates, and Islam calls for the killing of apostates. We are talked out of believing what we already see and understand every day. They're trying to talk us out of that. We got to go. You've got to go armed, practically now, just to defend yourself and your family from just the possibility. We cannot not go to malls. We cannot not drive our cars down the road. We cannot not go to the theaters just because terrorism has put a fear into us. And, well, we have, I love technology. just about does what it wants to do. Get back to my comments. I had mentioned earlier motives. They tell us they being the police departments, the heads of police departments, the heads of government. Blasio in New York City is a good example. They tell us that they don't know the motives of attackers. And of course they know the motives of attackers, just like we do. But they add these caveats. Are they mentally defective? Is it a vendetta? That's something the Celts brought to this country and the Italians. Workplace grievances, savvy jihadist recruiters have touched on all of these. And when they find these kind of people, and they exist in the Muslim world as well as in the non-Muslim world, those are the people they want to attract. And those are the people that are attracted. A moderate Muslim, one who doesn't want to run around yet, doesn't want to run around setting bombs off and killing people, will ignore those jihadist events on internet and not do it. But one day they will be called upon to do just that. So we have to just protect ourselves all the time. Just protect ourselves. We also have to watch the narrative of the left's press. The Clinton News Network, CNN, they have added the word, just one word, racial, to Trump's vetting comments and changed the whole picture. And of course, Trump said, we see that we know that that's not nonsense. Anybody who watches CNN anymore are sick. These people have no sense of the American way. They have no sense of the Constitution. And as though Hillary, she calls Trump's words treasonous. Treasonous. Can we get over that? Treasonous? I think that Hillary's whole life has been one bordering on treason, if not actually forays into the field itself. Remember Bill Clinton her husband gave away the guidance systems by Hughes Aircraft missile system, gave that missile guidance system to the Chinese. Whoa. So where are we at now? Chinese are getting ready to launch a colony to the moon. Where are we? We're still flying piston-driven airplanes off the coasts. I don't know. We're in a world hurt. We have been led astray by politicians, and we are suffering for it. The lone wolf concept. I want to get back to the lone wolf concept before we leave this section. The lone wolf concept causes people to misunderstand the very nature of radical Islam and Islamic terrorism. At its core, they want us to believe it is an act of strategic communication. Now there's a good word. In other words, regional and it's worldwide propaganda. We must understand it's about spreading and conveying a violent message using cheap and inconvenient means of attack. Knives, homemade bombs like pressure cookers, and pipe bombs, IEDs, cars, trucks, roll over people, just plow them into groups of people, and to create an euphemistic and vague notion that there is no linkage to a network or an organization such as ISIS or Al-Qaeda. This form of violent communication involves teamwork and coordination. It's always involved teamwork and coordination. And there's support groups and supply groups. And it's whether it's directed direct material support or shared ideological ideas, criminal and recruiting networks are in operation in America. Some terrorist acts may appear isolated, random, spontaneous, like the Orlando one, but that does not mean that they are. In fact, in most cases, they are compartmented for the very reasons I've already outlined, to hide the fact that it is an organized direct assault on America. So for those involved in our counter-terror effort, better understanding of these loosely organized networks means that we have a chance, we do have an opportunity, gives us a handle to topple these organizations. That means paying attention to individual terrorist acts and linking them to global trends. linking them to global trends. Dates. September the 9th is a new date. There's a date in October, it's Muhammad's birthday or something, I believe, that is important to these people. We track people down by these, their activities in association with these important dates. Ramadan, the end of Ramadan, that means nothing to the jihadists, but they tell us, oh, we've got to respect Ramadan because it's a holy month for Muslims, yet they go around and set off bombs in their own mosques. So that's also a straw man. I like the term a straw man. The same is true for our homeland security effort and law enforcement. In recent years, data show increased jihadist attacks globally. Thousands of jihadist groups adept at low-tech violence and a broad use of various methods against soft targets are out there working. Again, regardless of TSA. Again, as we witnessed in Minnesota, New Jersey, and New York, historical data also shows how recent attacks follow a conventional approach in which operatives, no matter how plugged into the radical jihadist network, play a key role. And they do it before, during, and after an attack. The San Bernardino attack was interesting because the first report said there were 3 people. 2 people were killed and a third person simply disappeared from view, even the news. Later, another article came out because there was a witness with a cell phone camera who actually filmed 3 people. But they don't want us to believe that there were 3 people. Turning everyday objects into weapons and making public places settings for mass execution are tactics. They're just tactics that serve the communication strategy of radical Islam. Terrorism is not a political, it is a political weapon, but it is not something we attack. It's a tool that they use. This low-tech approach is not only a tactic of communication or symmetrical warfare, it has come to define the modus operandi, the MO, and the organizational operations of regional groups and cells. That was a cell in New Jersey and in Queens, New York. It remains to be seen, because the man is dead, of the attacker in the Minnesota Mall. Such strategy and tactics are intent on building both local and global movements by exploiting the basest sectarian, ethnic, and religious differences, assembling seemingly uncomplicated, internationally dispersed cells, and relying on common criminals, the mentally ill, or simply naive, young, and alienated folks. This is George McClellan for George's Hour, and we'll have another break so we can earn some more lucre to keep this show running. Join me back in about 4 minutes, 3 minutes.
Right now at Pizza Hut, you can get any 2 medium pizzas for $6.99 each. Get any toppings, any crust flavor, anything you want for just $6.99 each. And sweeten the deal with a Hershey's Triple Chocolate Brownie for just $5.99. Only at Pizza Hut.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilmer County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
The summer sell down is on at Days Chevrolet in Jasper with huge savings up to 16% off MSRP. Save over $4,100 off Malibu Limited. Now just $19,500. Save $9,500 on loaded Silverado Crew Cab LT. Now only $38,700. Save up to 16% off MSRP on select new Chevys in stock during the summer sell down. Going on now at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
Hello, America. The first ever $5 flavor menu is here, and it's a game changer. For just $5 each, you can get a medium one-topping pizza, Wing Street Wings, a Hershey's cookie, and your other Hut favorites. A Pizza Hut pizza for just $5? It's the ultimate crowd pleaser.
How are you feeling, crowd?
Very pleased, thank you.
We do what we can here.
$5 for a Pizza Hut pizza. How can we not be pleased?
Good crowd today.
The $5 flavor menu, America's best pizza deal, only at Pizza Hut.
All right, welcome back everybody to Georgia's Hour on Fetcher News TV, FYN TV. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, you can call in at 889-9700, of course the area code 706. If you want to email a question, it's george@fetchernews.com, and I'll get back to you one way or another on that. So let's move on. I'm going to go right now to what Brian has always called my final thoughts. And this one is called Our Sorry State. Our Sorry State. And I don't mean the state of Georgia. Politicians who use government speak, their clue words, so as not to offend or more likely to obfuscate, are despicable people and must be turned out of office and made to dwell among us sheep they've been trying to herd into the socialist fold for so many years. A politician is not a royal personage. Terrorism is political. The bombings in New Jersey and New York, the multiple stabbings in Minnesota, assassination attempts of police officers everywhere, and politicians telling us they haven't connected a motive to Islamic terrorism, are all exercises in the political nonsense designed to keep us in fear. When we're in fear, we are controllable. Today, the fires of chaos are being stoked by America's new royalty, the entrenched and corrupted political oligarchs, who believe that it is only by fulfilling their political duties, and that means keep staying in office, that America can progress. Hillary Clinton sees herself as the queen royal of the oligarchs. And all seem to line up behind her instead, steadfast against the evil businessman Donald Trump, including the top flight GOP contenders who promised to support the GOP candidate and haven't. We heard today that Mitt Romney is supporting Johnson, the Libertarian, Gary Johnson, and George H.W. Bush is going to vote for Hillary. Well, those are only one vote each, but I hope their families have enough sense to realize the danger of doing that. A pox on Ted Cruz and a pox on John Kasich for their fecklessness. They are now exposed as oligarchs who believe in the superiority of their own wisdom over the choice of the people. There is a pattern here. In a country that once prided itself on individualism, justice, and unlimited opportunity, we cannot understand why when we realize that none of these things actually exist anymore except for the political royals. That nothing ever gets done, and we wonder why. The Clintons in their palaces in Manhattan and Chappaqua have prospered by shamelessly looting or allowing others to loot our treasury. It has happened before, and the results are always the same: socialism, chaos, poverty, and crime. We're swamped with happy talk, which is BS, and don't recognize the steadied and practiced hand of the old Soviet KGB involved in our demise. Think on this. The Soviet Union of old is gone, but not the odious apparatus that protected it. It was up to the Soviet politicians to keep their country going. It was the KGB's job to keep it safe. The USSR's destruction came from outside monetary pressures exerted by Ronald Reagan and Maggie Thatcher, and not from the people within Russia. It was a lack of finances caused by a decrepit economy, not politics, that caused the Soviet Union to expire. It is still the old Soviet apparatus of the reformed KGB, now the FSB, that is pursuing Russia's or Putin's hidden agenda. They are winning. What is basically unknown is that years ago, the KGB infiltrated the moribund governments of Islamic countries, sought out and recognized potential leaders, took them back to Moscow for training, and sent them back into their own societies to start the reorganization of Islamic governments into a true reflection of the Soviet brand of fascism. Many are now in our government, our own government. Hitler's fascism appealed to the Arabs. The Russians saw that and took advantage of it with the defeat of Nazi Germany. The Russians appealed to the Arabs' experience, not their dreams. Islam is a fascistic form of control wrapped in a religion pushed by jihad. That's why we are where we are today. We tried to introduce a totally foreign concept of democracy to Arab states, and they rejected it. Those KGB-trained Islamic leaders are now their government's leaders, and our politicians don't realize it. Well, actually, they probably do. They just don't know what to do about it. Now, decades later, these Islamic leaders, they could be identified, and their association with the old Soviet Union revealed, but they are not. We continue blindly on, reacting to every storefront explosion, bomb on a commuter train, or stabbing in a mall, with a singular new event to be considered as a one-off, a non-Islamic terrorist event, and continue to live in ignorance and fear. That's my thought for the day. Remember, freedom is the goal. The Constitution is the way. We had an interesting expose the other day, the emails that Hillary Clinton's tour as Secretary of State are being exposed by the WikiLeaks people. But that also included Colin Powell. 18 things we learned from Colin Powell's email. Very interesting. We learned that the former Secretary of State, Colin Powell, General Colin Powell, has become curmudgeonly since he left public office and dislikes a lot of people, including Trump and Hillary. And he's really wrecked that Hillary has supported him into her criminal activity. He's not putting up with that. Good for him. He also thinks Bill Clinton is still cheating, and that Ambassador Christopher Stevens was to blame for his own Benghazi demise. Well, that remains to be seen. It's almost certain now that that whole Operation Benghazi was a U.S. effort to move Libyan firearms and weapons from Libya to the Islamic State. Question: will Hillary's scandals tarnish Obama's legacy? Obama's legacy is already tarnished. Hillary's hasn't even started. She has been corrupt from the very beginning. We know it, but like a Teflon pan, the water rolls right off of her. The writer Myra Adams asks in an Examiner op-ed, Obama has remained largely untouched by the series of controversies and scandals that have dogged Clinton on the campaign trail. Shouldn't Obama bear some blame for the Justice Department's decision not to indict Hillary over her emails? Was Obama blind to the millions of foreign government donations pouring into the Clinton Foundation that violated the government's ethics agreements? Clinton signed the agreement she signed upon agreeing to serve as Secretary of State. Why isn't Obama a central figure in all the emails? He's a pretty good politician. I have to give him that. And he knows, I remember I read the rules, Alinsky's rules yesterday. He follows that. Admit nothing, deny everything, and blame somebody else. He stands aloof. And then when he talks in public, he tells the public, well, we were offended by this and missed by that, and by God, I'm angry, and I'm going to do something about it, yet he's the cause of the whole mess. Why isn't Obama a central figure when President Obama was Clinton's direct supervisor in the most important cabinet seat? Adams says these are especially important questions now that Obama is hitting the campaign trail hard for Clinton. She speculates about a game-changing movement that could implicate Obama directly to the web of Clinton deceits and scandals. Let me tell you, you still have to keep in the back of your mind two facts. Obama hates the Clintons, despises the Clintons. They despise him. They despise him as well. It is not beyond the bounds of this campaign has been so bizarre. It is not beyond the bounds of belief that Clinton may actually get a nomination, become the nominee for president, and then Obama turn loose the DOJ and the FBI on her, and any pretense that she could be president of the United States. He wants to maintain his legacy. He thinks she's the only candidate that can do it, but he's afraid she might tear his legacy down and replant it with hers. These people have egos that are unbelievable, and these people will do anything they want to do to keep the history alive. But their history is so short that it doesn't make any difference. 2016, the year of political reenactors. A lot of today's protests are simply reenactments of those we saw in previous eras. That's right. In 1965, I was on the California Highway Patrol and experienced my first riot in Watts, California as an officer. I was a new officer then, and I thought, well, this is it, the beginning of the world, it's all going to come down. In the intervening years, we've had city riots everywhere, and always the same solution is to throw money at it and blame poverty, but not blame the fact that it's liberal policies that have created that poverty. But these are reenactments. We see them again and again. Black Lives Matter, that group, recalls the radical protests of the 60s, and that's the Watts riot, among others. This year's National Party Convention protests reprise those of 1968. Remember that one? In 1972. Hillary is reprising the role of FDR, who was seriously ill when he ran for re-election in 1944. And you may know that he won in a landslide, then died in office less than 6 months after winning. Now, whether you're a never Trump or believe Donald's likeness will someday be chiseled in Mount Rushmore, our editorial argues it is vital that conservatives vote on election day. It is vital that we vote on election day. If Hillary wins and the Democrats take control of Congress, we can expect more big government initiatives like Obamacare. We can expect a total makeover of our government, and the only thing left then will be to go straight to gunfire, because nothing else will solve the problem. That will be the last thing that we need, that we can do to save ourselves or save our country. We can expect more big government, but it's equally important that Republicans retain control of Congress, even if Trump wins. Trump is a deal maker, and if the Democrats take the Senate, his inclination will be to make deals with them. His announcement on child care policy, some of which is good, could, in some circumstances, end up being an opening bid in a process that leads to mandatory paid leave. Got to consider these things. But if Hillary gets there, Hillary's going to appoint Supreme Court justices that will turn the country forever anti-constitutional. Hillary Clinton and her running mate Tim Kaine wrote a book, and almost nobody wants to read it. Probably because it's just a book of boring political policy proposals, and we already know what those are, so why read them in a book, spend money in a book? Trump's family plan isn't that bad. Most of Donald Trump's plan to help working families should receive conservative approval. Here in Georgia, we have 2 elections coming up that we should vote against. One of them is the state's takeover of schools, and I'm getting high-signed and my show's about over, so we'll leave it at that. Remember, though, conservatives have got to vote. Vote early, vote often, but vote. And I want to thank you. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock for Georgia's Hour.